Ag Matters is underwritten by Ag West Farm Credit. Ag West Farm Credit is a financial cooperative that provides financing, crop insurance, and related services to farmers and ranchers across the West. From small family businesses to large operations, Ag West brings the experience and financial know-how to help you grow your best future.
Welcome to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio.
Mike Chmielewski here at Big Cabbage Radio in Palmer, Alaska. It's my great pleasure to welcome into the studio someone who was here a long time ago. David Boortz, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I love the studio.
You know, I'm thinking back to when you first came into town. The first interview we did, there was no Lekker, there was no 203 kombucha. There was only David and an idea. And you came in the studio, we did an interview, and you explained what kombucha was.
That's right. That was a long time ago. Great memory.
Right.
Yeah, when I moved up here, I was looking to do something new and different and entertaining for myself, and it was going to be kombucha. And I remember explaining all the health benefits, but also how great it would be to have a business in the community and utilize local options.
Right. Before we turn to the subject of our interview today, which is Lekker's, how did you come up with the idea and transform it? The important point being, how did you transform it from that idea, talking about it, to an actual place? I know it took, how long? How long did it go?
Well, it took a while. I had nothing but time when I first came to Alaska. So, it was a winter when I started just hanging out in a cabin all day, just thinking about what to do next. And I think it was just a matter of months before there was a bottle of kombucha at a farmer's market in Palmer. Because as you know, there's a lot of markets around here. Right. And I was attending the markets right away and realizing that there's a lot of people doing a lot of neat things, and they're just trying to get it out there. And even in the winter, there's opportunities just to put stuff out there.
Okay. Now, kombucha. Were you aware of kombucha before you had that first bottle?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I came from San Francisco, and I was making it at my house in San Francisco.
Okay. So you had history.
I had the history. I had the recipes. I had the small scale options, doing small batches in my place just for me and a couple friends.
Okay. Now, you're going to have to do what many people find difficult, is expanding from small scale to big scale and go commercial, which implies getting out of your house, getting a building, etc. How long did it take before you had the opening that said, we're ready to sell?
Let's see, the winter of 2017, I was substitute teaching mostly at Colony Middle School and Colony High School, and I was bringing bottles that I was making in the cabin just for fun to the teachers to kind of try out. And it was probably the next spring, so just 4 or 5 months later, that I had a warehouse that I moved out of the cabin and bought rented, of course, a small warehouse by the fairgrounds and started doing larger production and going to more markets. And then it wasn't until December, it was the solstice of 2019 when the retail space opened. So that's about 1.5 years of extending doing as much as you can under the Alaska Cottage license, which is the direct-to-customer, disclaimered, I didn't make this in a FDA-approved kitchen. It was made somewhere else, and it has to be sold. There's a whole bunch of rules. You can go look it up. But it's a good entry to make jam in your kitchen and sell it at a market. You got to be under the cottage. But as soon as you start to wholesale, distribute, you want to do anything other than small stuff. And there's a financial cap too.
Right.
Then I thought, okay, I'm going to be out of this. I don't want to get in trouble. Obviously, I should go full on for the DEC license and an approved facility to serve retail in a commercial space.
And the commercial space you settled on was in the north of Palmer, and you worked with Jeff Johnson.
Jeff Johnson purchased what was it was nothing when he purchased it. I think it was kind of in an in-between space. There was cars parked there. It was most recently, I believe, like a repair shop, auto repair shop. But it's known as the Hartley Motors building.
Absolutely.
That's how everyone knows it. It's the Hartley Motors building. Yes. So I drove by. There was a sign that said for lease, and it looked like a pretty interesting thing going on. And I called the number, and it was, of course, Jeff Johnson in the middle of developing it, kind of build a suit sort of thing, trying to get a new business in there, but a major remake was going over the building. I mean, tons of stuff. It needed a lot of work.
Right.
And I thought, okay, this could be a good opportunity for kombucha. And I talked over the details of what I might need that were unique to a build out versus an office building and all that stuff. And it was pretty reasonable. So ran the numbers and then ignored them, because it's just like, it's pretty depressing to like just think, okay, well, I'm not going to do it if it's not a certain absolute guarantee. You got to like try to, there's a little bit of hope in there. And the unknown, of course, was there was nowhere in Alaska, or let's say there's nowhere in the valley where you could walk into a kombucha shop. Like there wasn't a kombucha shop.
Okay.
There was some good kombucha around. I mean, I spent a lot of time tasting different places that were making it, it's a pretty small scale, but there was not a model to go off of as a kombuchery, I was calling it. There was not like in the valley here. So it was a little unknown, but I thought that was enough of a mystery, enough of an opportunity, and kind of the unknown was enough to say, okay, I think it's going to work. Just try it.
Okay. So you fast forward, although I remember watching it, the slow movement of building in and getting all the equipment in, getting it set up. How long did it take you?
A long time. I mean, to the passerby, it probably looked like it was ready, but it wasn't. We had a one-day opening. We opened on December 21st of 2019 for the day. And then we shut down because we were not ready, but we needed to pay the rent. So we opened, earned some money, tested some stuff, and it was a fun party. All the kombucha was sold. We sold it all. We made it for weeks because I had small vessels still, so we made it for weeks, sold it all in the day, sold it all in like 5 hours, and then shut down until February 1st of 2020, which, as you know, is a tough time.
Oh, right.
Was that February 1st? I mean, I get my dates right. I think I am getting them right. It was a solstice opening.
Right.
Maybe it was 2018. Solstice opening 2018 in the retail space. Then a full grand opening February 1st, 2019.
Okay.
And then we operated, and that was it. When it's a kombucha, we actually had a walk-in fridge by then, and instead of countless reach-ins and all sorts of equipment. But yeah, so I would say that takes you really from February 1st, 2018, 2019. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a year of fumbling in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're operating, you were doing fine, you had fun, it was a place where people came, and you had all kinds of evenings and the rest of it.
Yeah.
The space I can witness was a kind of a steampunk decor, and it attracted a lot of people. But then let's jump, because the rest of the building was occupied by a retail space.
Right.
That seemed to be pretty successful, but a retail space that decided to move.
Right.
It decided to move into the center of town. Now, you had begun discussion about doing a coffee shop separate from the kombuchery and bakery. And there was a question of whether that space in your building was right, or whether it could be another space.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I put a small espresso machine in 203 because I just love coffee so much, and I wanted 203 to kind of be a coffee shop too, but it didn't. That's not where it went. You can only say, please buy coffee so many times, and it just wasn't going anywhere. I brought in a nice local roaster. It just still didn't. It's not a coffee shop. I work with Black Cup. They came and did a nice lesson with us, but it just didn't have coffee shop appeal.
I was there. I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine, So, but my little, I liked the kombucha. It was going great, but there was still a little bud of a dream in there somewhere of having a coffee shop and having a bakery, having the bread, having just the coffee shop experience that I really like having outside of Alaska, because people had emphasized they put a lot of work into the coffee shops there.
Right.
So I thought Palmer would like to have that, like a nice kind of clean, more modern space with really good coffee. And then even then thinking like maybe we could even roast it. Like that would be the on-site roasted, on-site baked, that's kind of the golden intersection. And kombucha was so cool because it's being made right there. You see these tanks, and you see it feels like a brewery. Just something that's made on site is just really fun to watch. So it's great to have a bakery where there's people
and there
rustling around.
Was a bakery in town over at Turkey Red.
Mm-hmm.
Alex
there was.
Had Turkey Red going and been very successful restaurant and bakery. People know the baked goods there. But all of that was done over at Turkey Red in a rather small kitchen. And so you had a conversation or two or three
I did,
with her.
yeah. Alex is a great baker and a successful business owner. What was happening over there was it was working, it was functioning, but it had the biggest issue was the space was not big enough, and running a bakery and a restaurant in the same space. The times overlap in a very difficult way. And what was happening was equipment was being used by bakers in the nighttime, then had to be put away and moved, and then making space for cooks to come in to start making breakfast. And those times are real close. The bakery, you want to have fresh bread at 6:30, but, eggs and hash browns at 7, that's really close.
Gotcha.
So she had always wanted to move the baking out and have its own space. But a standalone bakery, but didn't want to have a bakery somewhere, out in the outskirts where now you're doing like delivery issues and stuff.
All the rest of that.
Right. So I was like, hey, I would like to have a coffee shop that has amazing baked goods. Turkey Red would not be able to, in its previous state, be able to support a coffee shop in addition to their own restaurant. So we needed to allow more space. So I worked with her, then looked at the space and said, all right, there's 3,500 square feet. How about I give you, how about we do 800 square feet of bakery? And it's like, how about we do 800 feet of coffee shop? We have to negotiate on how much space is each. And then, of course, you realize that baking takes a lot of space. Big tables, big equipment. You'd have a walking space. So we worked with a designer, we worked with the architects to show us how much space we needed. And we pulled the trigger. It was like, this is going to work. I think a Turkey Red is going to be able to have the customers over there are going to have the same recipes made by the same people.
In fact, that bakery shop would supply Turkey Red.
Exactly. That's what it came to. So we kind of built in a little bit of a cushion to just say, look, Turkey Red is going to buy bread and pastries and stuff from Lekker, wholesale it over there. The customers are going to love it. The cooks over there are going to love having their space.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll also be able to retail everything in our own coffee shop. And Alex is like, I like coffee. I don't know. I'm like, I will kind of be the coffee side. You kind of be the bakery side, and we'll make this work.
Okay, now back to the timeline. How long did it take to go from making the agreement to actually opening?
That one took longer. I think it was longer than the kombucha. Even though it's Jeff Johnson and he's done this a million times, there was more stuff involved. There was, some structural engineering that had to happen. There was some just code stuff, just a little more of a back and forth, making sure it's all done right. But I think it was somewhere we opened May 31st of 2025. I mean, yeah, it's nearly a year between discussions and lease signings, and a lot of stuff is kind of in the air. Populane was moving.
Trying to move.
They're also moving to another Jeff Johnson building,
which was taking a while to finish.
Taking a while to finish. That's helpful that it's the same, building owners. We're not trying to buy and sell places. It was all going to happen. It's just a matter of when. So I'm trying to order equipment, but I'm not sure when to get it delivered. And so it all kind of settled into place.
Now, you've been open for over a year.
Just a little over a year, yeah.
Right. And by all means, I visit the coffee shop and the bakery fairly regularly. And if anything, it would appear that it's getting busier and busier.
We opened early. Before we're ready. I feel like that's just what happens. You realize, look, we set it. I think we even pushed it once or twice. But at some point you just say we are going to open the doors no matter what. And that happened on May 31st. I would have liked to have a lot of other things done. So we were at the tail end of the summer. It felt like it was a late summer, but June, July, it was busy. But it wasn't extremely busy because it takes a long time for people to just learn about stuff. It was too late for the tourists. The tourists, they get off the bus and they just do their thing. And it took a while. I think the winter is really where, even though it was kind of slower during the winter, that's where we started to build relationships with other businesses, with community members, with suppliers and all that, so that by the time summer came around, those people and all their friends and then their visitors and, all the connections were being made. So then this summer, 2026, is a huge summer because we're ready for it. Right. And it is a little even more so. I walk in there sometimes and it's busy and I'm just like, I like it being busy, but I also want there to be an option. I know you want people to get their food fast still.
Relatively quickly.
Relatively quickly, yeah.
So let's talk about a couple of things here. The bakery obviously is supplying goodies and all kinds of baked goods, and that's wonderful. And there are quiche and buns and bottle buns and this, that, and the other thing. And there seems to be experimentation that's going on. So there's a kind of an ever-evolving suite of things there. But I want to go back to something about the coffee, because that is kind of an unusual situation. You roast coffee on site, but you use something that is different than most coffee roasters. What is that?
Yeah, it is a small batch, sort of high efficiency electric ventless smokeless roaster.
Wow.
So we learned a little bit about the gas tough in some buildings,
right?
And it just wasn't going to happen in this building.
Okay.
It's not financially, it's not conceivable. It just would be out of reach. And just where coffee roasting might go for in some people's view of the world is that instead of having huge roast factories, like this Kaladi one is massive, right?
Sure.
They just build this huge one it's going to be beautiful. It's huge. But coffee shops, in order to stay afloat, the coffee sourcing is very expensive, and it might give you a unique twist to say, look, I don't need to roast coffee for half of the state. I just want to know what kind of equipment I need to roast coffee for my little shop here. Just kind of keep it small scale. And I did some research out there. The biggest one, I think they've moved now, but there's one, they moved their roasting already. But the grind in Girdwood,
right? You
walk in there and you off to the right, you realize there's a small little roaster right there. It's, the size of the table or so, and it roasts a couple pounds. They do it a couple days a week, and it's enough to supply their coffee shop. You're not going to buy the grind coffee and distribute it all over the lower 48. That's not their business model. It's more just to roast on site, use as little amount of energy as possible for that roasting, and get it to the people as quick as possible. And it's been probably the single best business decision we've had. And I'm in contact with the manufacturer, and they kind of follow our story, and I talk to them about it, and they want to put me out there and go talk to coffee shops and say, you should do this, because they want to sell more machines,
sure,
obviously.
Of course, yeah.
But it's an awesome opportunity. If you want to take on the work, it's not easy. Learning about where coffee comes from, the types of coffee, and all that is a huge undertaking. It's a lot easier to pass it off to a roaster. And there's local roasters around that are great. So you could go get local coffee and serve it, and that's their business model. But I think that every barista that we have there, every employee, just like all the bakers, they know what they're doing. They know what goes in there. I want the knowledge, the general knowledge of coffee in our shop to be a little different than every other shop. So I want the baristas and to know about coffee origins and the roast process, and just kind of gives people a little more
and speaking
conversation
about the
topics.
Employees, how many are there in the bakery and the coffee shop?
We're probably at our peak right about now, and it's about 18 employees if you count. There's some of them so we have some 6-hour-a-week people that are Troy. He's a coffee roaster too. He's great. He's an excellent croissant maker. He's been making croissants at Turkey Red.
Right.
He's a good setup at our place. So he's kind of like the specialist. He has a key and he comes in and just does his work. And so I think he's probably the lowest hour employee, probably one-ish day a week.
But you have people that I know since I've been going there since you opened who are pretty steady. You've got some new people that fold in, but you've got some, And we're trying,
with the 203 becoming an employee-owned business, I think this is the same plan. Getting the community members involved in it as much as possible, getting community partners, and then as appropriate, employees opportunities to become partners, and maybe give a few people a career. Maybe I'm getting a little lofty, but maybe a career opportunity. You love coffee that much, you want to work that hard, join us in this business. Something like that.
Now, Mike Chmielewski here at Big Cabbage Radio in Palmer, Alaska, and I'm speaking with David Boortz, formerly of 203 Capucherie and now of Lekker Coffee and Baking Company. You have extended beyond the walls of the building, though. You have built a cart that is a work of art.
That rhymes. The cart that's a work of art. Yeah. I piloted Lekker inside 203 as a pop-up in the mornings, a couple days a week for a few months, just to see what happened. It didn't really take off, but it was kind of fun. But again, going back to markets as a great place to just put your name out there. You got to have a snazzy getup, Mm-hmm. You go down Friday Fling and you just see there's a lot of different carts. There's different styles. There's full-on remade, what do you call it? The Airstreams, like the tailgating
Sure.
a bread lady, you know, there's that. Then there's like, you know, hippie buses sometimes, or there's big rigs, or there's the, you know, rustic barbecue. There's just tons of outfits. And I wanted something too. I wanted something to sell my coffee, but I just didn't want to be like high up physically, like when you're looking up into
down with the people.
Yeah, you want to be able to talk to them face to face. So we couldn't be in a vehicle. You know, we had to be on the ground. So that meant something like a cart. You know, there's a lot of carts like the Home Depot, big kind of tool chest that people have retrofitted. But I basically designed it from nothing, just where equipment needs to be, but how do you move a really heavy cart. I built it out of steel tubing and welded it all, and it probably came in at about 1,100 pounds with the butcher block and a little collapsible wings. So now it has a retractable, 6-inch casters. And, you know, I went to Weldair and bought the biggest barrel hinges you can and welded those on there, so you can lower these casters and wheel this sucker around, and it's a beast. But it doesn't look. The idea was to kind of put the branding in it, so it's got wood. It's got the kind of colorful Lekker style stripes.
Right.
And then it's got the barista, you know, me or whoever else gets to work with us right there in your face, eye level, coming around, talking. It's still kind of, I want to have the coffee shop experience while at the market.
And you are at markets in Friday Fling?
Friday Flings, yeah. Yeah, we're at every Friday Fling. We did Colony Days. We've done some other little private events, the farm, you know, the Drink Beer Say Farm. That was really fun. But I just like being out there more and more, even though, you know, we live right up the street, you know, the shop is right up the street. It's still fun to have the cart right here. I mean, I saw it with the Klondike Mike's, you know, the Garcias. They've got a truck. You know, their place is even closer. It's a different world, the market.
Right.
And the carnival feel. I mean, the tour buses are right there too. And Friday Fling draws a lot of people. I mean, I see people that I talk to them and they're coming from Wasilla, Anchorage, just to come hang out Friday Fling for the day, check out the local businesses. So it's been a huge benefit to have a cart there, even though we have a shop right up the street. And it's awesome to see people out there, yeah.
Well, David, this has been enjoyable. I've known much of the story, but not all the pieces. You've put it together very nicely for listeners. Have we missed some stuff that you'd sort of want to distill out of this whole story, starting with the kabuchery, doing Lekkers? Let's talk to begin with, before you throw something else in there, the choice of the names.
Right. I mean,
203 and Lekker.
I wanted to stand out, so trying to avoid names that have been used already. And I wanted a what does it mean kind of name. Like, what does that mean? I thought I nailed it with 203 because I thought if you'd be like, wow, what is 203? The assumption is that it's an area code. But I was hoping that people would ask, and it does happen all the time. And 203 is for the 203, you know, colony families that came to Palmer. And then all the equipment in there, that you're right, is kind of steampunky. There's a ton of Palmer relics in there. There's from MEA transformers. There's old street lamps, and it's built from Palmer history. Some would say Palmer trash, but I'm saying it's not garbage because we reused it. But we went to places all over the valley and we rummaged through people's yards for stuff.
And it worked.
And then the same thing, and I love people asking about it. I love saying, look, Palmer's got a cool history. We're just trying to be a part of it, and it's neat to like explain it to people. And then with Lekker, the same thing. I wanted a name that asks, you know, provides an opportunity to explain something. With this particular one, it's a reused name from my past.
Oh.
When I was in high school, 1998, my friends and I started a skateboard company called Lekker Skateboards.
Oh, wow.
You can look it up, Lekker Skateboards. It means tasty in Dutch. And the reason why we chose it then is because I have long Dutch history, family from a long time ago, but my friends were more active in their Dutch history. They would go to Holland and they would come back with treats and goodies, and specifically like on the candies and the chocolate sprinkles, it would say Lekker, Lekker, Lekker all over it. And it's kind of a fun name, and skaters are trying to be cool. So we called it Lekker Skateboards. And then when this business came up, I had so many names, and I thought some of them were really good, like Crust or Crumb. I even was going to call it Crummy or the Crumb or the Crust or Parchment for the inside of the coffee bean. All these kind of cool names that are like, oh, what's that? But they all like sent people down the wrong path, what they thought it might be. So I just proposed it. And Alex is just not super vocal. She's like, yeah, I think if we make great food and coffee, people will come there. I'm like, yeah, I know, but we should have a cool name too. So she just basically left it up to me. And I said, you know what? I can't. I called my friends. We talk all the time. I called my skateboard friends and I was like, hey, I think I want to call this coffee shop Lekker Coffee and Baking Co. What do you think of that? And they're like, that's a great name. I mean, it's kind of fun because I don't have the skateboard company anymore. And the name Lekker means tasty, means sweet. So it just kind of fit. It just all settled right back into it.
Done deal.
Done deal. I mean, I get a little bit of kind of nostalgia myself because it reminds me of my high school days, which is fun. Yeah.
David Boortz, thank you for all that you did to create not one but two businesses. Thank you for coming in today and sharing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, stay well out there.
You too. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
You've been listening to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio. Ag Matters is a production of Radio Free Palmer, recorded at our studios in Palmer, Alaska. For more information about this program, email manager@radiofreepalmer.org.